Do you not know that in a race all the runners run? Doesn't that feel a little sarcastic? Don't you know that in a race all the runners run? But only one gets the prize, so run in such a way as to get the prize. Everyone who competes in the games goes into strict training. They do it to get a crown that will not last. But we do it to get a crown that will last forever. Therefore, I do not run like someone running aimlessly, and I don't fight like a boxer beating the air. Here's what's interesting, is that I strike a blow to my own body, and I make it my slave, so that after I preach to others, I find myself will not be disqualified for the prize. You can leave that up there for a bit while I'm speaking of Elizabeth. Most of you, do any of you remember the 1984? Gosh, this is going to be weird. How many of you were born after 1984? Raise your hand. Good night. That's just wrong. Get out of here. I mean that from the worst place in my heart. My wife and I, we were adults with children during 1984. Well, actually, we were with children in 1984. I remember driving through LA. Do you guys remember how fun it was in Los Angeles at that time? The traffic problem was gone. I mean, everything was just gorgeous. There was the banners and the colors, and it was just a great time in the city, a very successful Olympics. It became the model for the Olympics going thereafter. Peter Uberoff created an event that was actually, for the first time ever, profitable to a city. A city didn't go into debt by hosting the Olympics. And they were spread out through all the different venues. It was just an interesting time. So many of you know that the Olympics came from our Greek friends, and often they participated. They created these games so that different people, tribes, locals would come and compete in different various games. One of them, of course, is running, track events, track and field. When Paul mentions that they competed for a crown that fades, it's not made out of metal. It was actually a laurel wreath. This is where you, some of you know, like the film festivals, there's always the wreaths and the surrounding ones. It's a similar shape. It would have been sitting on their heads when they won this way. And of course, a wreath would wither in a few days, quickly. But here's something you may not know. There was actually tracks or Colosseum type of events in Jerusalem. Jerusalem had been so baptized by the Hellenistic Jews and by the Greeks, and by the Romans for that matter, that having games was something in the city of Jerusalem. They had, the chariot races and the circus, Magnus, whatever it was called. That escapes me right now. Nonetheless, that was there. There was a smaller one in Caesarea Philippi, and there was one near Corinth that was huge, huge. They would seat up to 40,000 people, and it's still there. You could go there right now and see it. And you can see the opening, the tunnel at the far end of the oval. It's a long shaped oval, like a rectangle with circles at the end. You can see the oval shape where the emperor, Caesar Augustus, by the way, who was Octavian before he became Augustus. You know my parents named Octavius Caesar? I mean, the standard was set so high. And so I would come out, Octavian would come out and he would be wearing this white gown and just done up. And remember, Octavian is also the guy that brought in the notion that the emperor was a god. He's also the emperor that called the census that brought the Holy Family to Bethlehem. He's also why we have the month named August in our calendar year. And his uncle Julius, who adopted him, we had July in our calendar year. Anyway, we're getting off track. Not surprising. And so in those games, the local, the athletes from different communities and cities would come out, the different city-states. But when they ran, they didn't run in their name. They ran in the name of their God. And so the banners that they held out as they came out would have the city, let's say it was Whittier, all these, they come out bouncing the lowriders, and so they come out all inked and everything. And so they would come out in the name of 6740, or they would come out in the name of, some of their God, and whatever that God was. And of course, Caesar is the great God who hosts the games. And so you can hear Too bad Eddie's not here because there was that applause sound effect. You could just those roar people. And then when they would see their local guy show up, right? Oh yeah, no, go. All that, right? And then the runners would get into place. And it would probably get really quiet. I guess they didn't have a gun back then, right? So I don't know how they would signal the race. Go or begin. I don't know what they would do. But then it would take off. And whether it was a short distance or long distance, you've seen athletes now, whether it's in local meets, world meets, California Games, or certainly the Olympics. The straining, you can see the intense focus of the athletes to cross that finish line first. And yes, exactly like that. And many times you've seen people who are cheering their country on. They're so excited, and they wear their country's flag colors. They paint it on themselves. They paint it on places where they shouldn't, and then they show us where they shouldn't. Like, oh, geez. But they're so thrilled when their representative of their country or their team would win, right? But in this case, at that time, it was for their God. Now, earlier, Jesus takes his 12 disciples to an area up north called Caesarea Philippi, completely Roman town. There's some Greeks that are going to live there. There's a small handful of Jews that live there, but essentially, it's Vegas on steroids. It's really wild. It's kind of competing with Corinth in a number of ways. But Caesarea Philippi had a number of retired Roman military officials, people with money, people who had served, Rome faithfully. They had a lot of prestige there. What's interesting about that place is that there was also a place that had a water that was known as the Gates of Hell. It was built in the rock, and because the locals were concerned with, they really didn't have a thing with people worshiping gods. That was not a big deal. You can worship your God or worship mine. We're cool with that. So they set up a place that was kind of like a all-in-one God thing. You can worship any kind of God you want, but the premier God that was focused in worship there was a God called Pan. You've seen this person. It's usually cute cartoons of a guy, the half horse, half man playing flute, or half goat playing the flute, right? But as cute as that is, it was actually very grotesque in the sense that Pan worship included bestiality, included other erotic forms of sexuality, dancing, and that's right there on the platform. There's here's this big platform where they would all do their thing. There in the niches beyond in the rock that's built would be statues of Pan, with some of the genitalia exaggerated. Over here would be a cave that was covered with a temple opening where water would come out, and that was known as the Gates of Hell. And that's where Jesus takes his disciples. Now I'm sure they're wondering, Rabbi, why the heck are we here? And I'm sure they're like, where do we put our eyes? What are we supposed to look at? And then Jesus asks them the question, hey, what's the word on the street? Who do people say that I am? That's the context of where Jesus is asking that question. And some say, you're Elijah. Some say, you're John the Baptist. And then he says, well, who do you say that I am? And then Peter jumps up. You're the son of the living God. You're not like this God made out of stone that does this, but then his followers end up being like this. You're the son of the living God. And you have to hear Peter's almost angered declaration of that. You're not like this. And then, of course, you know the answer, right? Christ says, dude, you're right. But you got help on this answer. I know you cheated. But the Spirit of God had to tell you because you're not that quick to get it yourself. And then he says the thing that we've been misinterpreting for thousands of years. And upon this rock, I'm going to build my church. And he's pointing back to that. Now you can imagine for these Jewish men who have a huge, huge commitment to monotheism, how insane that sounded. And for the strict moral code, especially their sexuality, that, for the Messiah to say, this is my building material for the church. But see, I think the thing we miss also is when he said, some say you're Elijah. And the reason why that was interesting is because if you know the story of Elijah, he was the guy that called down fire and burned up the offering, burned up stones and water and sacrifices. But he's a guy that was known for his, how do you say it? Running. Running up Mount Carmel, running back down, running up and then back down in one day. And then later that day, outrunning a horse-drawn chariot for 20 miles. Because he was passionate about God and the message he was supposed to give. So when people would say, some say you're Elijah, they're saying, you're like intense, dude, like Elijah. Now, if you're Jewish, speaking to a non-Jewish culture completely devoid of any understanding of Jewish culture, how do you get across the idea of intensity that's exemplified in the running? Oh, it's like the games. And so now when you read 4 or 5 different times where Paul talks about running the race, so that I didn't run in vain. And he talks to the Galatians, why did you run in vain? Or when he speaks about himself running this race, I finished the race. That's what he's talking about. But there was an intensity to athletic competition that he wanted the followers of Jesus to have. Now, as we wrap up this whole Uprising series, and I hope you. I'm carrying up to the Italian trip to go. I hope you are writing questions out. The thing is that he's asking us to have that level of intensity. Now, when I first dawned on me what this was being said, you listen to a history professor, you listen to a Jewish guy speaking, you begin to connect the dots, you go, I don't have that kind of intensity. How many of you, I did this. How many of you, some of you are in this room, so raise your hand. You completed the LA Marathon. Yeah, give each other a round of applause. And Ms. Jensen trained those group of people who could barely walk to the refrigerator to get it done. Into marathoners. So, yeah, she took that group of people and made them marathoners. And you started with, I remember it was 2 miles. I remember 2 miles. There better be a dervish over there this, you know? And then by the time that the training was over, they had run already, I think, 2 marathons by the time they get to the marathon. Or something like that, correct? And I followed it for a while. I got up to 10 miles. And it's not far when you drive it. It's actually pretty good. It's exhausting. It's really Whew. Whew. Gatorade. What's in you? So I got up to 10 miles. I was amazed because there was a gradual process to get up there. And we did it on the green belt here with you. And there's some of us, there's some people, they're totally gymmed out. Like they're wearing the matching colors. And, they got they're all geared up. Sweatbands. Stretching. Really, sir? Really, madam? You're walking. This is... At least I pretended to run. Well, how many of you, did it hurt? Dan? A lot. Right? Corey, were there times you just thought, why am I doing this? Absolutely. Even now. The only reason why those folks finished it, and some of us haven't, is because they stuck to it and ran with intensity. I do it in suits up in Scotland. I took gym clothes. Good God, it was 70 degrees. Wasn't going to run that. Wasn't going to run at 80 degrees for that matter, too. As we finish this Uprising series, this is the longest thing we've ever done. It's been almost 3 months. I hear reports from the different book clubs of people's breakthroughs, prayer meetings that last an hour, folks vomiting up stuff that they needed to get rid of. You've done self-work that you've never done any other time in your life. Now you actually have a pattern, a template to work on stuff. Now you're able to identify things that are wrong. And you think, oh my gosh, I'm really screwed up. Man, awesome, you didn't know that before. That's a step in the right direction. You realize that? You know that you're goofy. In fact, it's just that we all feel the same. How many of you have ever lied? You lied to your benefit. You lied because you were a coward. You lied just because you were just a stinking liar. Just raise your hands. Hey, keep them up for a second. Now, those of you who are not raising your hands, you are the most recent liars. Welcome, we're glad you're here. How many of you ever stole something? You just stole it because you wanted it, you stole it. You felt cheap and dirty afterwards. You stole it because you were just a stealing, kind of thieving person. Raise your hand, because I was that person too. Okay, now, those of you who are first-time guests here, I want you to you're in a room full of liars and thieves. Hold on to your purse. And the reason why we hug you is that we're trying to pickpocket you. Dude, we're going to watch. This is what we're doing. We're checking to see where the valuables are. So if you look like you have money, you're going to get that a lot. So let's not pretend that we're something we're not. That's the worst part about Christianity, I think, at times. We come to church pretending we're something we're not. We're not good. We struggle. We all have our darknesses. Some of them are very dark and broken sexually. Some of them are cowardly. Some of them are just blatantly weird and awful. And here's the best part. That God says, I choose you. I just need you to run the race. Run because you're running on my behalf. And the way you run declares to the world that our God lives. And that He's worth running for. Okay, so here's what's going to happen on the Q&A. This is about as we can leave on for a little bit longer. Say hello to somebody. There's someone's offering. That was good. Mosaic is spelled O-C-T-A-V-I-O. Somebody just got that. One more? All right. There we go. Let's get the first one. Randomly. How many of you remember Karnak, the Magnificent, from Johnny Carson? So I'll read the answers to these questions. War of 1812. Yes. No, I do not. I'm stalling for time because I'm just as nervous as some of you are probably about this. Okay. How do you gain spiritual wisdom? Were you not here? Okay, I know it's a serious question, so let me be serious for just a moment. Okay, we'll be just for a moment. There's no shortcut to wisdom. There just isn't. There isn't a shortcut to it. And so this is why it's to your benefit for a couple of things. Number one, you need, sir, madam, to be around people. Period. You need to be around people who are attempting to do the impossible, crazy thing that you're attempting to do. That is to become a follower of Jesus Christ and run a race without getting up with intensity, with focus. The reason is that you know this from experience already. You will always end up being around people you hang out with. So if you're around people that are essentially they're not really going anywhere with their life. They drink too much. They have a very loose moral lives, or whatever. They mismanage their money. Whatever it is, whatever characteristic of the group of people, they're really into football. So I'm saying that's bad. I'm just telling you that whatever group of people that you end up spending the most time with, you are going to become that. So, for that reason, this is why it's critical. Listen, it's critical to be in a small group and have a group of friends who love you and are tempted to follow Christ. And here's the second thing. It's also critical to gain spiritual wisdom to stay teachable for your entire life. You have to be open to people speaking into your life, even when you don't want to hear it. The other day, there was a conversation with a young woman, and she mentioned the word, this is not safe, or you're not safe. And she threw the word around so many times. I just asked her, what do you mean by that? What do you mean by safe? And in the end, with all respect to this person and anybody else who's used that word, it came to me what I thought it meant. You agree with me. And if you don't agree with me, that means that you're not a safe person. And I know and realize that seems to be very flippant and a broad brush, but at times you need someone to call you on your crap. You need someone to tell you that you're being stupid, you're being immature, you're being infantile. And that's the best thing for you to do is to quit living as a victim and to learn to forgive. That's like one kind of thing, right? That's not the thing. But being open to having someone tell you that you're wrong is an important trait, but it requires a bit of reflection. So I'll give you a way to reflect on it. If you hear the same thing 3 times from 3 different people who are unrelated in 3 different types of settings, it's true. So if someone calls you a jackass the first time, hey, what do you know? I mean, seriously, Roman, what do you know? If someone calls you a jackass the second time, you go, well, I mean, listen, Lillian, the thing is, by the time the elders call you a jackass the third time, you're a jackass. You know, you get fitted for a feed bag and a comfortable saddle because you're a jackass. So if someone has said the same thing to you, I said 3 times, 3 times, it's true. Quit fighting it and quit thinking it's somebody else. It's you. It really is you. So how do you gain spiritual wisdom? Is being around people who are healthy and wise and trying to get to the same place you're trying to get to. Being open to feedback and being teachable for the rest of your life. You never get to a place where someone you can't learn to be a better person. It's a good question. Do you think that courage may take many attempts and then there's grace, right? There's grace, right? Yeah, courage. Yeah, I think courage is just like wisdom in some respects, is that you don't always get it right. We define courage as taking risks for the sake of other people. Okay? Now here's one. You've heard me say this before. When someone loves you in a healthy way, you become stronger. Somebody would experience that here, somebody would experience that in other situations. Maybe a coach did it for you or a parent. But when someone loves you in a healthy way, you become a stronger person. Now, if that's true, think of the ultimate being that loves you and how that could have a health effect on your life. Okay? But to love somebody in a healthy way takes courage. You're taking a risk for the sake of someone else. Why? Because they could break your heart. So if you don't want to be hurt, don't care for anybody. Don't give yourself to anybody. Don't serve anybody. Don't have no empathy for other people, and you will not be hurt, and you won't have to risk. But you're going to still change. Your heart will get smaller and shrivel, and you become less of a human being. So, do you think that courage takes many attempts? Yes. Not everybody becomes, an amazing person the first time out. If you read any of the stories of significant men and women in the Bible, you see there's a lot of private stuff that went on in the background before they had a very public display of courage. I'll give you the easiest one. David. Oh my gosh, here's this kid, a teenager, skinny kid, who in Middle Eastern men, average height 5'2", they thought he was the runt. I mean, how tall was he? How little was this guy? And Goliath, by estimates, about 9 feet tall and yoked. Kind of like, a UFC fighter on human growth steroids or something. Just massive. And ugly, with cattle flower ears, right, and all that. How come you hit the Lord? So David comes out and takes him down. Wow, that was amazing. But in private, David fought what? Just like the Wizard of Oz, a lion, a bear, oh my, right? Yeah. So did David have some private courage moments before the public one? Yes. And so it is, I think, a pattern for our lives. It's always the same. There will be moments where you have to be courageous in private. And no one else really knows about it but you. And that develops the courage and the muscle of courage for very public events. And yes, there's grace. Thank God there's grace, because we are goofy people. We are all liars and thieves, as you now know. I love the series. As well you should. I'll leave it there. I love the series and look forward to every week's talk. I incorporated every week's challenge as best as possible, and I feel like I have grown spiritually as a person. Thank you. Oh, that wasn't a question. Well, you're welcome. How do I ask for help when I'm not sure I see. How do I ask for help when I'm not sure what help I need? All I know is that I keep having the same problems play out. That's okay. That's a good question. So let's say it's, I don't know, let's just say money. Well, let's make it real personal. Let's say it's relationships. And you still Gosh, I remember this. Jody, do you remember this? We were asked, Jody and I, is a good friend. Give Jody a round of applause. So much talent, so many gifts. One man, Jody Harris. That's why I hate him. And he's under, top of everything else. We were asked, Jody and I, to go to this LMU.
Oh, yeah.
What was the name of the university? I can't think of it now. Well, yeah, that's it. Whatever. Yeah. So we go there with a couple of other men. I had no idea what we were going for.
Yeah.
And so they said, oh, we need you guys to speak as a panel to a group. But, oh, sure, speaking, I'll do it. But I had no idea what it was for. We get there, there's a room full of women. And the question was,
They were all single women.
they're all single women, yes. And they wanted to know why don't men want to marry?
Yeah, it was like a panel of married men, engaged men, and single men. There was only 6 of us.
Yes.
And it was a room packed full of single women. And the first question was, why are guys jerks?
Yes. And then I said, Jody's got this. Because if anybody would know, it's that jerk. And Jody starts with a J, because that's just not But I am going to get to an answer. I don't know if it was that time or I don't know if I actually said it. I said, if you're running into the same kind of jerk guy, who's the consistent person in that story? It's you. I think I said it then. It didn't get a lot of applause.
No.
It's like cold water in the room. But I figured, let's just get to the point. It's not the guys, it's you. You're not picking the right person. I say this because I love you. You're so impatient for love, you're willing to have sex with somebody just to feel loved. And you're taking that substitute. That's what's happening. As far as relationships at times. And guys, you just are horrible guys who do it. And you know. You know when you're doing it. And by the way, this is always weird to me too, and I'm going to still try this question. When I recall one person actually looked me in the eye and said, I know the Bible says da 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 da, but what do you think? So I remember telling Bob the Rex, Bob, clearly, look, sir, madam, if you wish to live a life that's not consistent with the scriptures, go ahead. I don't care. I don't care in this respect. You know that I'm very reluctant to tell you how to live your life. You know that. I don't come up here to say, stop doing this, stop doing that. You know why? Because you can't unless the Lord has made you change. And you might be able to do it for a while. Then that becomes religion. But I'm pretty quick to tell you the consequences of what you're going to do. So just be honest. I know the Bible says not to do this, but I'm going to do it anyway. Oh, great. That's awesome. If you're going to sleep around and live together with your girlfriend, go ahead. You're welcome here. We'll still love you. We'll pray for you. Go nuts. But then when it goes weird, don't stop. I didn't know the Bible didn't say that. Please, you do know, you just don't want to, and that's okay. But be honest about your sin. I mean that, seriously. Now, if you're not a follower of Jesus, this is the first time you're thinking, I can't believe what's going on. I'm not speaking to you. You're our friend, you're glad you're here, but as followers of Jesus, we're ascribing ourselves to a different lifestyle that is in line with the teachings of Jesus, but if you haven't said I want to be his follower, we're not going to put that on you. But I'm suggesting that you're going to be a healthier human being. You'll be enhanced as a human being by becoming a follower of Jesus. So, when you don't know, okay, I think there's a bit of dishonesty here in this question. You do know what's not working. You know that you're not doing something well. So that's where you go to a person, male or female, and say, I'm having trouble in this area. Chances are that thing that you're doing is just a symptom of some other hurt or pain. It always is that thing. Some of you spend way too much money because you feel there's a sense of filling something or a sense of control when you spend money. When I'm feeling out of sorts, retail therapy always seems to work for me. But I like cleaning. I remember the kids said, oh my gosh, Dad's cleaning again. Something's wrong's out of his way. Because I felt like I was scrubbing the crap out of my own life somehow. Like I was putting things in order that felt out of order. I do laundry for the same reason. I feel like, oh, I can something. My life's a train wreck, and I folded these plumbing really well. So, that's underwear, Jody, by the way. You know that. Because you're a jerk. So we keep having the same problem. It's time to ask somebody who's I would say wiser, not necessarily older, but wiser. Where are the sodas? No, me, you're on my dad, bro. Where's Rachel and Dave? Back there. Rachel and Dave have a ton of life experience. Married couples, singles. That's a good source. Dan and Kristen Romo. That's my wife. Where's Andy and Stephanie? Where are you guys? This is an amazing young couple. You know, if you're not sure, there are people here that are amazing who've been running a race for Jesus for a while. Go to them in confidence and say, I'm having this challenge. Meet somebody here at the care station after the gathering. I have a thing, I don't know if I'm ready to confess it, but I have a thing, and I wish to get better. But I realize it's probably there's another hurt or void I'm trying to fill by that thing. And you'll get better. Uprising. How can Christians keep strong? What encouragement can you give, facing the promises of Matthew 24, Revelation, etc.? In other words, we work to improve the world around us, yet we know it's going to get worse before the end, but you don't know that. Persecution, false prophets, another known. We have heaven, but we have spiritual. But what scripture, wisdom, can you encourage us to persevere? Jesus said so? I don't know what to tell you. Jesus said to continue until he returns. I mean, I don't put it. Listen, there are some subcultures, sub-tribes of Christianity. They're truly all about just the end of the world. That has been going on for 2,500 years. And that's the benefit about being our age, is that you've seen the cycles of people's weird focus on the end of the world. Now, do I think there's an end to human history? Yes. Even my philosophy trains me that, to understand that. But here's the thing. Jesus never said, you guys focus on the end of the world. God gave a command to our ancestor that he's not rescinded. Take care of the garden. That's your job. And so, and many reasons, you've heard me say this in the past, I think Christians ought to have been or should be still one of the voices of people in the green movement. Why? Because it's our Father's planet. You know, let me ask you a question, just in general, in light of this question. By the way, thank you for asking this question. I'm sure other people have thought about this. You don't know when Jesus is coming back. Even Jesus told you, I don't know. By the way, he was using the language of marriage in that situation. But the point is that, the thing is that you don't know if it's 50 so that someone else can meet him. What are you here? Why are we here if we're not going to get involved with the culture? I half-jokingly mentioned some of these churches that are dying and all that is rent their buildings. You just think, oh, I'm praying the Lord over that building. I said, they're not dying, go to heaven. I mean, what are they doing? We won't put that in the podcast. If you're not going to engage the culture, what would you be doing? Well, is there a problem with music? I'm not going to get all prudish. Oh, someone said the F word or the N word. Is there a problem in music? The answer is yes. Yes. Don't we need followers of Jesus who love Christ, who are just intensely running the race to be in music? Do we need them in movies, in films? Do we need them in the arts? Do we need them in teaching professions at universities around the world? Do we need them in politics? Yes, of course. We need followers of Jesus who are sold out, running hard for Jesus in every area of life. Why? So we demoralize the nation and make America the new Israel? No. So that we create an environment for other people to connect to him. When the righteous rule, everyone's better off. So I would say the wisdom is to get involved in serving. Serve, like Bob Dylan once said, serve somebody. You get to serve absurd. In fact, here's what I would tell you to do, to be very frank with you, like because I wasn't frank before. Find somebody you think is beneath you, or a group of people you think are beneath you, and they're awful sinners. Think of a group, okay? And go serve them. And you'll finally be like your Savior Jesus. Find the worst human being you think is possible, and figure out a way to bless their life. And you will be more in alignment with how Jesus lived among us. How can we inspire others to apply various principles from the book, from this book? Does this book inspire you to get tattoos on your Well, yes, it does. It says love wins, 1 Corinthians 13:8. So yes, it did. How can we inspire others to apply, this is going to sound smart, how can you inspire others to apply the principles from this book? Live out the principles from the book. I'm not putting it away. The other day, my wife and I were having a conversation about how followers are perceived around the world or in our culture. She pointed out, generally a low view. Okay, which is true, and I get that, but whose fault is that? Do you think, let me ask you this, do you think people generally have a high view or low view of the Red Cross? High, yeah. How about UNICEF? High. March of Dimes, you follow? All the nonprofits that are doing good around the world. So why is it, ask yourself, why is it that we have such a low view of followers of Jesus? Now, I know the cheap, easy answer. Was it spiritual warfare? Or they hate us, As Jesus said, if they hated me, they'll hate you. And we use that as an excuse to have poor social skills and relational skills and to be obnoxious, self-righteous, priggish, horrible human beings in the name of Jesus. But not everybody hated Jesus. Is that fair to say? Now, step back a bit. Who are the people that hated Jesus? Very religious people. Who are the people that love Jesus? Oh my gosh, they would invite him to his home. Eat with me, spend time with me. Jesus, hang out with me. Jesus, bless my kid. Jesus, come talk to me, talk to my friends. Who are those people? Sinners. The people that were so awful that folks who were, even the first disciples were like, I don't know, man, this is not right. This is right. So, let me ask you a question. If I do think about this sometimes, and sometimes guides my thinking and decisions. If I have many followers of Jesus saying this is a good idea, I really hesitate. Okay, if everybody likes it, who are followers already, maybe it's not the right idea. I mean that seriously. When people who are weird, they're sexually broken and damaged and just dark or goofy and just weird, I'm automatically drawn to people like that. Because I feel like, I guess I do feel at home. I get you, But so does Jesus. Now, I realize that some of you are thinking, look, bad company corrupts good morals if you allow their decisions to override yours. Yes, absolutely agree with that. But it goes to me back to the idea of what are we supposed to do when the world's going to end? Well, goodness, what are you doing? Back up. Remember when Jesus was leaving? He just cooked breakfast for the guys on the beach, the Great Commission in Matthew. He says, feed my sheep, feed my sheep. Okay, now, who are the sheep? Who are the sheep? Everybody. If the sheep meant only followers, that means Peter would be teaching, well, they wouldn't have a Bible. They would be teaching studies to each other and no one else. If you take that hard, strict interpretation. But what if it's feed my sheep? Care for everybody. Lilia did an amazing job years ago. She worked as a school liaison for a public school. Was it Mulberry? What was it? Mulberry Elementary? So she gets hired as a liaison, between the teachers of the community, someone to speak Spanish and all that kind of stuff. So she created, one of the things she did was English speaking classes, literature classes, and parenting classes. And so So she realizes that the scriptures have colored her life. But I don't have the liberty to quote the Bible at a public school setting. So she would point out in the different lessons and explaining how to manage their lives as women and how to manage their lives as parents and how to deal with children. She said, there's an old proverb that says, there's this book that I once read that went, what is that, wise as a serpent, harmless as a dove? And so it came around that sooner or later people would ask, hey, what's that book you keep quoting? It's the Bible. The way you inspire people to live out the principles is to live them yourself first. And you live such an interesting, compelling, healthy life that people want to know what you're dialed into, what are you drinking, what do you do that makes you you. And you just live your life. And by the way, I believe the scriptures have power, and so does prayer. But I believe you can have power with the scriptures, the Word of God, without having to quote the chapter and verse. Correct? You just can say it over someone's life. And then you get involved in serving them as well. There's nothing more compelling than a man or woman who really loves Jesus and serves other people. Nothing. I want to change, but I hear different voices that pull me in different directions. I don't know which one is right. The one that's right is, I remember these days. The one that's right is the one that calls you to a life. The one that's right is the one that declares that you are loved. The one that's right is the one that enhances your humanity, not diminishes it. The one that's right is the one that steps you into a place where you feel more whole. There are going to be, look, when you're trying to figure out this whole spiritual thing that we're doing, and it's a little nutty at times, you are going to hear voices that are very confusing. And the thing about the dark voices, what makes it confusing, is that they're camouflaged with your voice. Sometimes they're camouflaged by a voice from the past that's a father or a coach or your mom, a neighbor, or an uncle who says something almost sinister to you. Or it's repeated. Sometimes someone did say something that was just awful to you, and they called you a mistake. They just damned you. They said, "I hate you," in a moment of anger, and it just burdened your soul. You've been living in that for years. That is not the voice of God. The voice of God says, "I love you. I think you have so much value that I will cross heaven and hell to get to you." It's the one that says, "I will not stop loving you." No matter where you go, what you do, this is the embarrassing part. You take Christ with you. Because he says, "I don't leave and I don't forsake, even when you're dark and horrible." So, the voices you hear, and how do you know which one is right? First of all, I would say, get involved with the scriptures, because then you can use that as a filter. But absolutely, the voice that calls you into a life of generosity, kindness, the one that actually lifts you, the one that allows you to sleep at night, the one that allows you to laugh. I've heard recently, just this year alone, 2 women mention that becoming a follower, they knew something had happened because they were able to laugh. That's the voice.